one place that I really like to start is to have each of you guys speak to the extent of abuse within sports that you all have personal experience and direct knowledge of, so that we can help, I think, frame the problem in a clear way. Because I think that's one of the things that we haven't gotten yet coming out of Sandusky is, you know, all of us know that this is a big problem, but I don't think we really get just how big a problem it is. So, Chris, do you want to start?
I'd be glad to. When I first started my research on the documentary, the very first thing that I did was set up Google Alerts. So I would get informed of particular stories every day about sexual abuse within youth sports. And after a week, you could not name a sport where this hadn't occurred. Not only could you not name a sport, but you couldn't name a state. Within a month, you couldn't name a major city where I couldn't choose a case to focus on. I don't think, I would be hard pressed to really believe that there has been any youth serving organization at any level that hasn't dealt with this. Even if they dealt with it properly, maybe they addressed an issue and dealt with it, but I don't think people will say, are there more sexual predators in the world of sports than society at large? And the statistics would say, anywhere that there's access to children, you are going to find the people who are seeking access to children for the wrong reasons. It's like a bank robber, right? Where do you find bank robbers? Where the money is. In my research, we have hundreds of cases from the smallest towns in America, from your YMCAs and Little Leagues, all the way up to the professional ranks, to the Olympic ranks. And not just that there are survivors at all these levels, but there have been perpetrators who have succeeded in their sport. In some cases are in the Hall of Fames in their sports. And we may never hear about these people publicly, but yeah, that's just, sorry guys. But, so I don't think you can overstate it, and not to cause a panic, but to see the truth of it, is that wherever there are children, there will be adults seeking out children for sex. And that's not the happy ending to the story that we're going to discuss, but it is setting up the scope of this. We all in this room know, well, far too well, that it's everywhere. And I'm going to let Katherine speak to her experience now. But
first and foremost, there needs to be no coach-athlete relationship whatsoever. And it hasn't been teachers, students, doctors, patients, lawyers, clients. There's a professional code of conduct that's required, and that is not in the sports environment at all. And so, and then the other, well, certainly many issues, but I mean, the other thing that there's no corrective action or accountability at any stage. In the workforce, you have most working environments, you're required to go through sexual harassment training and what have you, and none of that exists for a coach and for an athlete. So there's unchecked behavior, and there isn't anything around to correct that. Well, Safe4Athletes has created, environment to do that. And the other thing, being an elite athlete, and talking to many, leaders on this subject matter and having my own experiences, that the dynamics that evolve being an elite athlete are with your coach, and when they cross over to abuse, they're more in alignment with domestic violence. And both from a societal perspective of, well, why are you still there? Like, why don't you just leave? And I find that there's, it's like that, the same thing happens when, you see somebody who's been beaten to a pulp and they go back to their spouse And there's this lack of understanding that, because it's like you just don't get it. Unless you're in it, you just don't understand the complications that you're dealing with in that relationship. So, and you need the help and the resources to be able to unwind a complex issue. And so far that has not been, I mean, you don't have the basic necessities, let alone, dealing with the complexity of that. And then on top of that, I feel that coaches have unchecked power and full, there's some sort of, pullback, and there's other environments now that are working, like the Positive Coaching Alliance, I think, is doing a good job, and learn about more, the Coach for America organization. But I find that there's, it's just been an environment that there's too many different organizations that, whether it's, it needs to come together and create cultural change across the board. An analogy I like to use is that when we, and excuse my going, like, so hear me out on this analogy, is that going through security at the airport, I'm old enough to know when it was just, you pulled up to the curb and you went straight to the gate. And I kind of feel that's like where sports are today. They're a little bit beyond that, where they may have actually put in a metal detector. But I feel like, one, we're asking each airline to create their own safety requirements versus having across the board structure to create safety within our sports community. And I would say, as much as it's an inconvenience, I have lost so many things going through security, and taking off my shoes and my belt and my clothes, it's a pain. I'm inconvenienced and irritated with it every time. But I know that it's for my peace of mind. I know it's for your peace of mind. And if I were to, if they told me today that none of that was going to be there, would I get on a plane? No. It gives me a peace of mind, and that's what we don't have in sports.
Well, I don't know what the statistics are in sports, but in the last couple of years, you've had a $6 billion industry pop up in America based on individualized, specialized coaching. You've got coaching kids taking overnight camps, clubs, tournaments. There is no checks and balances. Coaches have this almost unparalleled power platform position in the lives of young people. I do workshops all over the country on every level, from professional sports down. Basically, no one has a code of conduct. And what you keep running across is all the institutional protectionism at the expense of kids. So I'm not sure anybody knows exactly what's going on. I will say this, in the coaching clinics that I do, I'm always amazed at the number of men that will pull me aside and will share. And I know, as a coach for 17 years, I know how to identify. And on every team there are any number of boys that have been abused. And I've had 3 boys since I've been coaching, and learned how to ask them and probe in a way, and or then try to get them the help. So I think the numbers are staggering, and I would agree greatly with Katherine. It's totally, there's no accountability. When that coach takes that team away in the field, there's nobody in the school, nobody knows what's going on down there. So it's not only sexual abuse, but the physical, the emotional abuse is tremendous in sports, in the name of breaking down boys to build up men.
Thank you so much. Keyon, I want to ask you to share with everybody one of the things that you said to me when we were at the Katie taping that I was very touched by, and I thought was really important for everybody here, is the work that the work that you've done as a mentor during your career, and some of the things that other players have shared with you.
Yeah, the sports world is pretty dynamic, and there's so many people who align their careers with it. I mean, it's a big deal in our country. I mean, sports, food, and entertainment, it doesn't get much more better, bigger than that. It's a great uniter. For me, sports was always an outlet. You know, it was always a place where I could go be free. It was a place where I learned how to control my aggression, that anger that I had in me. You know what I mean? It was a place where I learned discipline, where I learned how to dedicate, where I learned teamwork. I learned so much from the sports world on how to deal with my own issues. I think if I didn't have sports, I would have lost my mind a long time ago. So it was a safe haven for me. In our game, basketball in particular, there's a lot of wounded guys out there, and it's reflected in, you know, sometimes DUIs. You see a lot of DUIs from athletes. You see a lot of domestic violence. But what you don't see is all the hurt. And what you don't understand is where does that hurt come from? And usually it's one form of abuse or another. It is crazy how many guys have had it so rough and have never talked about it, have never dealt with it. And a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my peers have come from fatherless backgrounds. And so that compounds it because you just don't know the role of a man. You don't know how to be receptive when a man is trying to teach you. Because there's a lot of great coaches out there. I learned some of my best lessons in life from coaches and through sports. However, you know, our field is not exempt to those who want to take advantage of people. And for me, one of the hardest things I had to deal with was the verbal abuse that in sports is so like not a big deal. Getting called a sissy, or you're playing like a girl, or you're soft, getting your toughness and your disposition questioning. That would bring out a lot of my insecurities. When a coach was questioning, say I wasn't tough enough or I wasn't hard enough, it would like almost sometimes like I would have to compose myself from crying because they had no idea how tough I was. They had no idea how much, you know, I wanted it for my family, for my community, and for myself, and to prove those people who hurt me wrong. And so the healing process, I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to stay around the game of basketball, is because I think we have the platform to do so much good. And we are grossly underachieving as athletes, in particular as professional athletes. We're getting divorced at a high rate. We're going broke at a high rate. Guys are committing suicide at a high rate. You know, there's a lot of hurt there. And so you have to attack the core of it. You know, when these guys come in, we have to do a better job of, you know, getting them, you know, finding that hurt so the healing process could take heed. Then you can go out and have a much more productive career, a much more productive family life, a much more productive relationship with your community, know how to connect yourself with the community, and it'll just help you overall. But the hurt that is in our sports world is miserable, and we are the ones who kids look up to. And so when they see us go down, it hurts them too. You know, they don't want to see their heroes fail. They don't want to see the guys who they look up to and aspire to be fail. But they have to understand as well that some of these guys have just been untreated for their hurt, for their depression, for whatever they may be going through. And that's why I'm here to try and make a difference, not only in the sports world, but around the world, because it doesn't just happen in my community or in my sport. It happens in your community, in your organizations, Boys and Girls Clubs, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, churches, whether it's Christian, Catholic, or whatever the case may be, you know, colleges. You know, it's happening everywhere in all different communities, and it's like taboo. And fellas, I understand, man. Trust me. I understand. Like, I consider myself to be a macho man, a masculine man, a guy who's a protector of his family, and a guy who's pretty comfortable in his skin. But this is hard for me to talk about. Talking about, and I've been abused by men and women, the abuse that happened from the man perspective is the most embarrassing for me. It's the most hurtful for me. It's so hard for me to say, yeah, I was touched by a man. I know it comes out real easy, but every time I say it, I almost pause, and I have to like go within and get a little bit more courage and say that, yeah, I was abused multiple times by me. And it hurts. And if I wouldn't be having, you know, I have a little strategy that works for me, because I think there's 3 different phases of feelings that you have to go. Not feelings, but internal feelings. And so there's a spiritual side of it. I think everybody has to have something, a higher power to believe in, to connect with, to pray to help you with this experience. And my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has been that for me. You have to have that support system from your family or from your friend. You have to have that love. I need that love. I probably need more love than the average man. You know, and my wife can tell you, like, yo, baby, I need to be hugged. I need to be touched. I need to holler if you hear me. You know, I need that. You know, I need that reassurance. I need that safety net. And, you know I developed that because of my lack of having that as a youth. And I embrace that I am a sensitive man. And then I think there has to be a sense of treatment, therapy, something that's very undervalued in our society, in our culture, and especially with us fellas. You know, we think we got it under control. We know how to go sit back. I mean, we have releases, but a lot of times that means, you know, sucking on a bottle of liquor or finding, you know what I mean, an activity that like just masks it or takes your mind away from it, but we don't deal with the core issues. So the spiritual side, the physical side that you may have, that love that you may need from, you know, your family and your support group, and then there's that treatment side. You have to talk about it. You have to heal with it. You have to deal with the issues. The therapy side is something that has been so beneficial to me.